I'd like to talk to you about bloodborne pathogens. This is part of our safety training for substitutes. We do have a bloodborne pathogen exposure control plan that everybody can reference. There are copies in the main office of each school, in the nurse's office at each school, and in the nursing supervisor's office at central office. If you didn't know what a bloodborne disease is, the screen will explain that to you. Bloodborne pathogens are germs that may be found in human blood and some other body fluids that can cause disease in humans. How are bloodborne pathogens spread? Blood or certain other body fluids can enter the body through a cut, puncture, or scrape in the skin or mucous membrane, sexual contact, or contaminated needle stick or needle sharing. It can also be carried by sharp objects such as broken glass or sharp metal edges, safety pins, knives, needles, or any other sharp object that is contaminated with blood or other body fluids. Here we have some facts about hepatitis for you. We do practice universal precautions. They are practices and procedures that help prevent the transmission of bloodborne pathogens. Basically, if you treat all blood and body fluids as if they are infectious all the time, you're going to be on the safer side. So you want to make sure you have and know how to use personal protective equipment or PPE, for example, gloves. You want to follow the district's procedures for carefully handling blood and body fluids. And hand washing is the best way to prevent the spread of infections, as we've all been learning recently. My best thought on this is if it comes out of a human body and it's wet, you don't touch it. That'll keep you safe. But again, if you have to, we have gloves in every classroom for you to use. But you should not have to clean up anything. That's what custodians are for. So in case you weren't sure how to wash your hands, these pictures here will tell you the correct way to wash your hands. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, would be the single-use disposable gloves. I think many of us are way more familiar with gloves now than we used to be, but you definitely want to use them if you are going to come in contact with anything that's moist that comes out of a human body. You want to replace the gloves if they're contaminated, torn, punctured, or they lose their ability to function as a barrier. The gloves can dry out and become brittle, so we go through and replace them at the school level, but I know I used to, when I had my own classroom, have a lot of little Ziploc bags with plastic gloves in them. They can dry out. If you were to find a pair that was dried out, you would want to call to get a replacement for them. So if you weren't sure how to correctly remove the disposable gloves without touching the skin so you cannot contaminate your skin, this slide shows you the steps in which you remove the gloves without having touched the contaminated surface of the gloves, and then you dispose of them in a trash can. If you ever have a student in your classroom who has a bloody nose and throws the tissues in the trash can, you need to call the custodians, call the main office, have them send the custodians, because they need to bag up that trash can, the tissues in that trash can, because that is a biohazard. So when you have that situation, please call the custodians to remove the trash bag. Each school building has automatic external defibrillators, AEDs, and there is a team that is trained on them. And inside the box that holds the AEDs, there are gloves and a mask for doing CPR. Sharps containers and biohazard bags, those sorts of things that are listed in the second point here, those are mostly with the nurse. The custodians will have some of those things, but if you are in an S&P or severe and profound classroom, some of those things might be in that classroom as well. So again, you do not have to clean up blood or body fluids on surfaces. Don't attempt to clean it up by yourself. They have training, they have the products. They know the procedures to do that. So if you had a student who is ill in your classroom, you want to call the custodians quickly. You want to move all the other students away from the splash zone if you have somebody who's vomiting. And you want the custodians to come in and clean that up as quickly as possible. So when we talk about significant exposure, these points are what we mean by significant exposure. So what do you do if you are exposed? Well, don't panic because most exposures don't result in disease transmission. You follow the steps here, immediately wash the exposed area thoroughly with soap and water. If blood or body fluid is splashed onto your face, open cut or abrasion or mucous membrane, you immediately flush that with running water, and then you immediately report the incident to the principal or administration and the school nurse. Now, Manassas City Public Schools will arrange for free post-exposure healthcare referral care and follow-up as appropriate, and that will include any necessary immunizations or blood tests. So food allergies, we need to address food allergies in school. And if you didn't know what a food allergy is, this explains it to you, but I'm sure we've all heard of this at this point. So these are the 8 foods that cause the most serious reactions. These are the symptoms of someone having an allergic reaction. It is very important to monitor a student that is having, or anyone who is having an allergic reaction, because with some allergic reactions, someone can go into anaphylaxis. And that is a whole body allergic reaction that is rapid in onset and may cause death. And the things that can cause these would be food, insect venom, certain medications, or latex. The gloves in the school buildings are not latex. That is not a concern. So this describes what the treatment of anaphylaxis is. That would be a shot of epinephrine. For a serious reaction, that would be an EpiPen. You do not have to administer the EpiPen. You will definitely call for the nurse. There are EpiPens on site. There are certain students who are allowed to carry their own EpiPens with them. There are EpiPens now that literally talk you through how to inject the EpiPen. Again, as a substitute, that really is not your duty or job. It should be student administered or nurse administered. So these are why we have to be prepared to address food allergies in a school. So as I mentioned before, each school has a stock of EpiPens and staff members who are trained to administer them. So a life-threatening food allergy can be considered a disability under federal laws. Also, you must maintain confidentiality. That again is part of FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, but also this would fall under HIPAA as well, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So that medical information must be kept confidential. So now we get to the emergency management portion. We want to focus on the safety of everybody in our buildings. That is the top priority for us. So when you're working in a school, you need to be prepared to make the right decision at the right time, because during an emergency, you will be the one who needs to respond effectively. So each classroom has an emergency response guide. It looks like the picture on this slide. It has all the responses you need to make to different situations. There will be your lockdown, there will be suspicious packages, there will be bomb threats. Everything that could happen is covered on the front and back of this laminated guide. Oftentimes, teachers will have it tacked onto a bulletin board. It should have a copy in the emergency bag in a classroom. It often is also near where the phone is in each classroom. So each classroom has emergency resources. You can see in the slide with the phone, there is an emergency bag hanging underneath it. That is an old emergency bag. I'm going to show you a slide in which you can see what they look like now. Each classroom has an emergency guide. Over to the left are some of the items you'll find in the emergency bag: a flashlight, hand sanitizer, batteries for the flashlight, a whistle, gloves, a first aid kit. A walkie-talkie you won't often find in them. Elementary school classrooms have walkie-talkies for when teachers are out on the playground, but I was at the middle school. We did not have walkie-talkies with our emergency bag. Also, you see a little binder there. That is an older emergency response guide. So as I said, there will be one of the new response guides in the emergency bag as well. So these are emergency response bags for the different schools. You can see they all look like backpacks with logos, most of them anyway. You want to make sure when you get into a classroom, the first thing you do is kind of look around the classroom and locate that emergency response bag, because you will be required to take it with you during a fire drill, during any sort of evacuation. You will need to have that with you. If you don't know where it is, you can always ask a student. They should know. They are trained on these as well. They would recognize them, but most of them will say emergency bag. I think you can see in the picture Mayfield says Go Kit. That's another term for them, but they are in every classroom. So we have different terms for our safety drill information. You have a lockdown, an evacuation, secure the building, a tornado drill, and an earthquake drill. The reasons why you would have these things are in the parentheses. So for a lockdown, if a lockdown is called, you are going to conduct a visual check of the hallway for students and staff and quietly and quickly bring them into your room. No one leaves the classroom. You must make sure that door is locked. The outside handle must be locked. I typically tell people to make sure that that outside handle is locked when you get to the classroom. The inside handle can be free turning, but you need to have that outside handle locked in case you run into a situation where you have to quickly shut the door. Then you're not fumbling with the lock at the time the outside handles are already locked. So no one leaves the classroom. You lock and close the classroom door. You cover the windows, which would mean you drop the blinds. If there is a window in the door and there's a blind to drop down, you would drop it down. You turn off the lights. Everyone, staff and students, go into a drop and cover position. Basically, you get on the floor, you stay out of the line of sight, and you are silent. You take class roll. Typically in a lockdown situation, you're not going to be doing anything with that information for a bit, because you're going to wait until it is safe to do so, make a report of that information. If a student had gone to the restroom and not come back to your class, or gone to the library and they were not back in your class, you definitely want to make a note of who is missing, who was gone from the room. They may come back later. They may have sheltered in a different teacher's room or in the library. They should come back with a pass or a note that tells you where they were. You do not answer the door for anyone. I don't care who knocks on the door. If they say it's Principal Flugraph, you don't answer the door for anyone. All the emergency response personnel have keys to the room. They will come and check your door handle, which is why I tell you, you've got to make sure it's locked, because that is a ding on the school in the report that there was a room that was unlocked. The way you know it's an all clear is somebody will come around and actually unlock your door for you. Typically they would unlock it, open it, maybe keep it partially closed and walk away. Once your classroom door is unlocked, you want to wait for the announcement from administration that says, thank you for participating in this lockdown, blah, blah, blah. But the lockdown is not over until someone has unlocked your door for you. And at that time, if they don't relock it for you, you would want to make sure you relock it. An evacuation or a fire drill. For that, you turn off the classroom lights and close the classroom door. Again, make sure it's locked. Make sure you have your substitute key with you for that classroom. You take whatever color the emergency bag is with you. If there's a walkie-talkie, you bring it with you. If you want to grab your purses, you certainly could do that. I always took my cell phone, but I was able to lock my purse in my classroom, so I didn't worry about it so much. I took a coat if it was cold or rainy, though. You quietly exit the building through the designated evacuation route that is posted in each classroom. You should look for that when you get to the classroom. Sometimes it's near the phone, sometimes it's on the back of the door or on the wall behind the door. Again, you want to find what your evacuation route for that classroom is, because that is the route you're taking. Once you quietly exit the building, again, you are not the first person walking out in front of a class. You are the last one to go, because you are shutting that door and making sure it's locked. The students line up outside of the building. You will take roll. You will prepare a list of anybody who is unaccounted for, and someone will come around to you and they will ask you, do you have everyone? It is at that point you either say, yes, I do, or no, I don't. These are the students I am missing, because we don't go back in the building until all the students are accounted for. So you want to make sure you tell the person who comes to ask if you have everyone, whether you do or you don't. In a secure the building situation, that's things happening outside, typically in the community. You can lock and keep your classroom door closed. Your door should always be locked, whether it's open or closed. That outside handle should always be locked. If you were outside, you would come in. If you were outside for recess or whatever other reason, PE, you would come in. You may have to shelter in the cafeteria or the gym. I have never contacted the office for unaccounted for students because they weren't unaccounted for. But if you were missing anybody, you definitely call the office. You continue with normal instruction and you wait for the all clear to be given. Some schools will announce that they're in secure the building status. Other schools will put an announcement out that says, teachers, please check your emails at this time. If you hear that announcement, ask the teacher next door what is going on, or call the main office, because that's often the cue for a secure the building status. Tornado drill, that will happen in March. That is, you take students to the tornado shelter area. That's interior hallways on the first floor, or sometimes interior rooms. Signs are up in the building indicating the safe shelter areas. Everyone sits on the floor facing the wall and they cover their heads, and you stay away from doors and windows. If you're upstairs, you're coming downstairs. Earthquake drill. This happens typically in October. Everyone performs the drop and cover and hold. You try and get under a desk or a table. You want your back towards the windows. You want to protect your head. You hold on to furniture legs if the furniture moves. If you're outside, you move to an open area away from the buildings, trees, playground equipment, anything that might fall on you. When the shaking stopped, you assist any injured staff and students. And then once administration determines it's safe, they start an evacuation. My favorite is number 6, which says turn off the classroom lights and close the classroom door, because I'm just going to say, if it was that bad of an earthquake, I may forget one of those steps there. But this does roll into if it's a real earthquake. In that case, you would take class roll, you would take the emergency bag with you, and you would bring and turn on the walkie-talkie if you have one. That time I am taking my purse, my car keys, my cell phone, my coat, whatever, because if the building is damaged, you have to wait till somebody examines it before everybody gets to go back in. If it were that bad, you would want to be able to leave when you are allowed to. So you quietly exit the building through your designated evacuation route unless it is blocked, and then you find an alternative route if the other one is too dangerous. You take the class roll when you have evacuated. You prepare that list of unaccounted for students or staff, or any additional people who are with your class. Maybe you have some extra students that are with you. They were separated from their class. Whatever you're going to tell the person who comes to check if you have everybody what you have. Nobody's going back in that building until it has been declared safe. So you stay at the evacuation site until the all clear is given. So it is your responsibility to learn these plans and to be able to respond appropriately in an emergency. We practice these drills so that everybody knows what to do, students and staff alike. This is a safety review. There are a number of questions here. You can take a little test here and you can answer the question in your head, and on the next screen you will get the correct answer. I am going to quickly sift through. I won't read them all to you. So if I start to go too fast and you want to take the time to answer them, just hit pause on this. So if you are reading this orientation, or if you are listening and reading this orientation, your background check has already cleared. You will receive an email from me, which gives you your absence management, numerical login and PIN, and then you will quickly get one from Frontline that tells you to create a username and password. And at that point, you are ready to start picking up jobs. This is a true statement that over the course of an average child's education, he or she will have a substitute for the equivalent of 1 full year of school. We really hope that you make your time with students count. So welcome to the team.